Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really crucial topic if you're in management auditing.
Hmm.
But hold on, we're not talking about those, dreaded formal audits that feel like a surprise inspection.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
We're diving into a book called Auditing for Managers, The Ultimate Risk Management Tool. It's by K.H. Spencer Pickett and Jennifer M. Pickett from back in 2005.
Right. And the core idea is pretty interesting. It's about empowering managers and their teams, too, to actually conduct their own sort of
Right.
initial audits.
Exactly. Think of it like getting a head start. You're proactively looking for potential issues, strengthening your own processes, really getting things right from the inside out rather than just waiting for the formal auditors to show up.
Yeah. So our mission today is to really unpack this concept. What does initial auditing actually mean? Why should you care? And maybe surprisingly, how can it be a powerful tool for managing risk in your own patch?
We'll be focusing mostly on these manager-led and team-led audits. The book does cover formal audits, sure, but these initial ones, that's where you get that proactive edge, that shortcut to really understanding your risks and controls.
Okay, so let's get into it. Why should managers even, well, care about auditing? Seems like something many people just see as, a necessary evil, something the audit department handles.
That's such a common way to look at it, yeah. But the book really pushes back on that and reframes auditing as more fundamental. It's about establishing what's really going on in an area.
The real position, as they say.
The real position, exactly. And the focus shifts squarely onto the risks that could stop you from hitting your business objectives and, crucially, how well you're actually managing those risks day to day.
And it feels like there's just more and more pressure now, doesn't it? From regulators, industry bodies.
Mm.
Everyone's talking risk management, internal control, compliance.
Absolutely. The pressure's definitely on. But, as the book points out, a lot of business managers tend to, well, maybe shy away from really digging into the nuts and bolts of it.
So that's where this initial auditing comes in. They call it A4M99 sometimes.
Yeah, A4M99 is kind of the principle behind it. It's essentially a self-audit, driven by the manager or the team based on a solid understanding of their own business area. The idea is that stakeholders need to trust this process, so managers need the right tools to do it properly. It's about credibility.
And they make a bigger point, too, don't they, about external audits and investor confidence.
They do. It's quite profound, really. A trusted external audit process underpins investor confidence, which in turn supports the whole economy. If that trust breaks down, well, we've seen examples of what happens.
So it's all connected. And the internal audit team, they fit in how?
Their role is seen as supporting and reviewing these initial audits. They look at the bigger picture, governance, performance, compliance, making sure the whole system works.
But audits can go wrong, right?
Sure.
The book mentions pitfalls, like it becoming just a box-ticking exercise.
Oh, definitely. It can become the path of least resistance, or too cumbersome, or maybe nobody feels real ownership of the outcomes. That's a real danger.
Which loops back to why this initial audit approach is different. It's about empowerment.
Exactly. Empowerment is the key word. It gives the responsibility back to management and staff to think about their risks affecting their objectives and to review their controls.
Okay, that leads nicely into this idea of the accountability dilemma and ethics, audit risk management. It's all part of this bigger governance picture.
Right. The accountability dilemma, as they put it, is linked to making decisions transparently and ethically. It's
Right.
not just about blame after the fact.
So accountability for performance, integrity, what gets published.
All of the above. And the book talks about the board having oversight of strategic risk, while line management is accountable for the operational risks in their areas. They mention keeping a key risk register at the board level, too.
Which sounds similar to how things work in the public sector as well. Accountability back to the public.
Very similar model, yes. And underpinning all this governance stuff is, or should be, a strong ethical platform. You need clear objectives linked directly to risk management and the controls you put in place.
They also touch on ethics having sort of two dimensions, like personal beliefs versus society's rules. And the Enron example comes up again.
Yeah, that contrast between individual perception and societal codes is important. And Enron is the classic, maybe tragic example of how executive behavior, the tone at the top, really shapes everything. Ethics has to be lived, not just written down.
So if we drill down into internal controls, what are we actually talking about? What's the book's take?
It's quite practical. They say internal controls are basically whatever the business needs to do to satisfy its stakeholders and deliver a quality product or service. It's not just about rules from outside.
The push-pull factor they mention. Some controls are required, others just emerge naturally.
Exactly. You've got regulatory demands pushing controls onto you, but you also have the practical needs of the business pulling controls into existence because they help people do their jobs better.
And they differentiate between controls that have sort of always been there, the mechanistic ones.
Right, the established procedures, and then the organic ones that sort of grow out of new needs or changing circumstances, more flexible.
And then there are different types of controls: preventive, detective.
Corrective and directive. Preventive stops things going wrong. Detective finds them if they do. Corrective fixes them. And directive guides people towards doing the right thing proactively. The focus is really shifting towards that proactive, directive side.
They even lay out a 10-step approach for making procedures actually work. Sounds like common sense, but probably often missed.
You'd be surprised. Things like clear communication, training, getting feedback, continuous improvement. If you design controls well, the book argues, you get a positive response to risk.
And a warning not to think too narrowly. Controls aren't just for the finance department.
Absolutely not. That's a critical point. It has to be broader than just accounting and financial reporting. It's about the whole operation.
And this loops back to the initial audits again, doesn't it? Making sure the people responsible for an area are the ones reviewing the controls for the risks in that area.
Precisely. The initial audit ensures that connection. They mentioned the COSO framework, too, which is well known for assessing internal control.
Right, with its 5 components.
Yeah, and they really stress the importance of a sound control environment as one of those components. That culture piece again. Does the team get why controls matter? Do they feel safe raising issues? An initial audit should ask that.
And that POAC idea instead of traditional performance reviews: pride, ownership, accountability, capability.
Yes. It's presented as a better way to manage people and performance because it explicitly integrates risk management into accountability.
Yes.
It asks, how well are you managing risk as part of your job, not just hitting targets?
Okay, let's switch gears slightly to risk management concepts. The book talks about a risk model covering, well, pretty much everything: assets, operations, projects, finance.
Yeah, it's comprehensive. Physical assets, back office support, operations, quality, change projects, financial reporting, often overseen by a chief risk officer. He shows how widespread risk is.
They also talk about the old TQC model cheaply, quickly, to specification and how it's evolved.
Right. The governance debate has broadened it. Now there's this value factor. It's not enough to be cheap and fast. You have to do things properly, ethically, maintain your reputation.
Like the examples they give, sweatshops or poaching talent, those hit the value factor hard.
Exactly. Those are risks beyond just cost and time. And, of course, you need the risk register.
The central document, right. Capturing risks, how they're managed, action plans.
Yes, and the key point for our discussion is that initial audits should directly feed this. Do we need more controls here? Can we relax them there?
This based on the risk assessment done during the initial audit. I liked the example of buying a new car to illustrate it. Risk. Buying a lemon. Control. Research safety ratings. Get an inspection. Test drive. All logged in a register format. Makes it very clear.
It does. And then you have different responses to risk. You can tolerate it, treat it, meaning reduce it with controls, transfer it, like insurance, or terminate the activity causing it.
And communication is key, especially if a risk affects outsiders.
Absolutely. Then there's risk appetite. This is a big one.
The amount of risk the board is comfortable with the organization taking.
Pretty much. It sets the tone from the top down. How much risk are we willing to accept to achieve our goals? Stakeholders look at this stated appetite to judge the organization.
And after all that, you're left with residual risk.
Yep, the risk that remains after controls are in place. This is really what the organization worries about most. The book frames the dialogue around this using the 4 V's.
Value add, valuables, valuations, and vulnerability. Can you unpack those quickly?
Sure. Value add. Could this residual risk stop us delivering value? Valuables. What key assets are still exposed? Valuations. How might stakeholders perceive our worth given this risk? And vulnerability. How easily could those first 3 be hit? It makes residual risk more concrete for managers.
Makes sense. But defining that risk appetite sounds tricky. Everyone has different tolerances.
It is tricky to formalize. The book suggests asking some basic questions, though. Are our investors aligned with our appetite? How do we stack up against competitors on risk tolerance?
And a warning. Risk registers shouldn't just be paperwork filed away.
No, they have to be living documents used in real management decisions. Otherwise, what's the point?
Okay, so that brings us squarely to the different audit approaches, especially the manager's initial audit. The idea is managers audit their own areas.
Yes, proactively assessing their existing arrangements. They need a clear aim And the right tools, questionnaires, interviews with their team, maybe workshops.
And finding that balance between accountability and trust you mentioned earlier, it's not gotcha auditing.
Definitely not. It's collaborative improvement. The book outlines 4 main types of audit reviews, generally.
Right. Type 1 was compliance performance doing things right.
Yes. Type 2 is risk management and internal control effectiveness. Type 3 looks ahead, future focus, strategic direction. And Type 4 is specific investigations.
And these initial audits can vary in formality, from quite structured to just ongoing awareness.
Exactly, 4 levels described. The manager's initial audit, though, following those A4 and Mach 99 principles, is typically a manager reviewing their own risk management and controls, and then presenting those findings, perhaps to internal audit.
What are the big benefits they list for doing this?
Things like clearing the air on potential issues, identifying actual improvements, checking procedures are followed, promoting learning within the team, verifying information. That's quite a list.
Sounds very practical. They even have 10 stages for a typical audit exercise.
They do.
Yeah.
And they stress having an annual plan for these initial audits, focusing on high-risk areas, and integrating it all with the main risk management process.
That ICM tool, or internal control evaluation matrix, seems useful for systematically looking at controls.
It is, and they cover testing methods, observing processes, reviewing documents, vouching, tracing things back to the source.
But interviews are highlighted too, just talking to people.
Often the best way to understand how controls really work or don't work in practice. They also mention using concept maps or focus groups to brainstorm control improvements.
And it all feeds back to keep that risk register up to date.
Correct. But again, the caution. Don't let it get bogged down, too costly, or detached from real-life practice.
Okay, what about the team's initial audit, the TIA? How's that different?
It's complementary. The big difference is it directly involves the frontline staff, the people doing the actual work. They participate in workshops to assess risks and develop better controls relevant to their tasks.
And what triggers a TIA? Changing markets, existing problems.
Yeah, things like that. Known problems, new team dynamics, market shifts. The goals are really about building shared understanding, empowering the team, getting better risk intelligence from the ground up, designing practical controls, and importantly, sharing what's learned across the organization.
So these workshops, they can be ongoing or just when needed.
Different scenarios. Could be continuous, could be sporadic, maybe just focused updates. The book suggests teams evolve, getting better and more focused in these workshops over time. I remember a case study where a team used TIA workshops to tackle persistent quality issues. By involving everyone, they pinpointed the root cause in a handover process and redesigned it together. The results were significant.
The focus seems very much on real issues and tangible improvements, and people being key.
Absolutely. People are the most important aspect. And detailed testing usually isn't the main focus of a TIA, unlike maybe a more formal audit.
Cautions here. Don't just do manager audits and ignore teams. Keep TIA connected to the main systems.
Exactly right. And then there's the manager's initial investigation, the MII.
Right. This is looking back at something that happened to clear the air.
Yes, an inquiry into past events. The aim is to understand what went wrong, gather reliable evidence, and foster a healthier, more transparent environment going forward.
And these are usually commissioned with specific terms of reference.
Typically, yes. Reasons could be control failures leading to errors, maybe overpayments, or even potential fraud, although serious fraud would likely need specialists.
That's an important distinction. Knowing when a manager's inquiry is okay versus needing experts for, say, major legal issues.
Crucial distinction. Reputation management during investigations is also highlighted as very important.
They suggest a process for responding to control failures and investigating. 6 stages.
Yes, a structured approach. The key is setting and meeting standards for the investigation. The report needs to be reliable, objective, not a whitewash. The goal is understanding systems in practice and improving them.
And the cautions are similar. Don't starve it of resources, avoid a blame culture.
Precisely. A blame culture just shuts down honesty and makes future improvements harder.
So putting it all together, successful risk management and achieving this cultural shift, where does the book land on that?
It argues success builds on those basic risk concepts we've covered, backed by a clear risk policy and solid links to controls.
And leadership is crucial again, driving it from the top, tuning into enterprise risk management.
Absolutely essential. Enterprise risk management is about spreading best practice, using a common language for risk across the whole organization.
And avoiding those silos where teams do their own thing with risk assessment.
Right. Integration is key. Culture, they define simply as shared beliefs. So shifting the culture means getting people to internalize these new ways of thinking about audit and risk as part of their job, not an add-on. You have to understand the existing culture first, of course.
What does a healthy culture look like in this context? Valuing people, trust, empowerment.
Support, motivation, all those things. People need to feel safe and valued to truly engage with risk management. The book notes both external consultants and internal people can drive these change initiatives.
I like the contrast they draw between the old manager, maybe risk naive, and the new manager who's risk aware and sees the value.
It's a helpful illustration, and they emphasize the role of creative work teams. They don't just find problems, they generate solutions and foster that positive attitude towards change.
And importantly, these initial audit competencies need to be part of recruitment and appraisals.
Yes, embedding it right into the HR processes makes it clear it's a core expectation.
Okay, last big section. Reporting results and the why bother question. Reporting seems increasingly important. Public disclosures.
Very much so. The trend is towards explaining how principles are met, not just stating that they are. This requires ongoing monitoring, senior management awareness, and regular reports on internal controls.
But there can be a gap between theory, clear objectives, reliable evidence, and reality, fuzzy objectives, avoiding responsibility.
That gap is real. Evidence from initial audits needs to be relevant, sufficient, and balanced to really support an opinion on controls.
And the risk register is central here too, for controls, assurance, and reporting.
It really is. It ties it all together. Those key columns, risk, owner, impact, likelihood, controls, actions, are reviewed and updated through the manager's initial audit.
They propose a reporting structure involving the board, audit committee, chief risk officer.
A clear infrastructure. Good reporting, they stress, informs stakeholders, shows how reviews were done, documents findings clearly, and promotes transparency. They even outline what should be in a management report on internal control.
But again, a caution. Don't just copy formats. And effective reporting is hard.
It takes effort. But the ultimate why bother is that the initial audit process aims to equip people, to support them in reviewing their controls. It helps managers meet targets, rather than just adding another layer of bureaucracy labeled risk management.
And external auditors can support this, especially around financial reporting.
Yes, they have a role. An internal audit provides that assurance layer, reviewing the initial audits themselves like quality assurance.
Compliance auditing gets a mention too, balancing enforcement with encouragement.
Right. They talk about a compliance capsule, translating external needs into internal procedures. Compliance should be built into the initial audit and control design, not just checked afterwards.
So summing up the fundamentals of auditing: implementation, management competence, clear roles.
All crucial. And they note different ways initial auditing gets implemented, sometimes imposed, sometimes haphazardly, sometimes in silos.
And the benefits to report are stronger controls assurance, better risk assessment skills.
Improved communication, and crucially, risk management being seen as important and integrated, not separate.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. To recap this deep dive on auditing for managers, the big takeaway feels like this. Initial auditing, driven by managers and teams, is a really proactive, empowering way to handle risk and controls.
Absolutely. It's moving beyond just the formal audit cycle. It's about embedding risk awareness and, importantly, accountability right down to the operational level.
And for you listening, hopefully this gives you a framework, some practical ideas for getting better informed about risk management in your own world, whatever your role is.
Maybe consider this. How could you use some of these initial auditing ideas in your own work? Could you foster a more risk-aware culture?
Yeah, what small initial audit could you maybe conduct, even informally, just to gain some insight into potential challenges on your team or in your area?
It's worth thinking about, because engaging more proactively with risk, as the book suggests, can bring some surprising benefits and definitely boost confidence in hitting those important goals.
Great stuff. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.